When a police officer hands you a blank piece of paper and says, "Can you write down what happened?" almost every person does the same thing. They take the pen. Because writing down what happened sounds like an opportunity. It sounds like a chance to tell your side. It sounds like the kind of cooperative, transparent thing that proves you have nothing to hide and helps the situation resolve faster. Here is what almost nobody knows. A written statement you produce yourself is the single most damaging document that can exist in a police file with your name on it. Not a recording, not a transcript, not an officer's notes. Your own handwriting, your own words, your own account of events, produced voluntarily, signed at the bottom, handed directly to the person building a case. A verbal explanation can be misremembered, misquoted, or disputed. A written statement in your own hand cannot. It is permanent. It is signed. It is yours. And it can be used against you in every proceeding that follows, forever. Today I am going to show you exactly what is happening legally when an officer hands you that paper. Why the request always sounds reasonable and cooperative when it is neither. What a written statement actually becomes the moment you hand it back. And the exact words you say before the pen ever moves. Words that close the request down completely, protect every right you have, and cannot be used against you in any court in this country. Hit subscribe right now because this channel gives you the knowledge that protects you before you are ever in the moment where you need it. Share this with one person before this video ends. Someone who would take that pen without a second thought because writing down what happened sounded like the honest thing to do. That person is exactly who this video is for. Here is the reality that most people are never taught. When you write a statement at the request of a police officer, you are not having a conversation. You are producing evidence. The moment that paper leaves your hand, it becomes part of an official police file. It is documented, preserved, and available for use by prosecutors, investigators, and anyone else who touches the case that follows. It does not matter whether you were a suspect, a witness, or simply someone present at a scene. What you wrote is now in that file.
And written statements carry a specific legal weight that verbal ones do not. When a prosecutor reviews a case, a written statement signed by the person in question is one of the most valuable pieces of evidence available. Not because it necessarily contains a confession, but because it contains your account, in your words, from the moment closest to the event. Any detail in that statement that later contradicts something you say, in a follow-up interview, on the stand, in any other context, becomes a credibility problem. Any detail that fills in a gap the investigation had becomes a gift. Any detail that connects you to a time, a place, a person, or a circumstance becomes a thread that investigators can pull. You did not write a statement. You wrote a roadmap. Here is the other thing that almost nobody thinks about in the moment. When you sit down to write what happened, you are doing it under stress, in an unfamiliar environment, often without full information about what you are being asked to account for. You write what you remember. You leave out things you do not think are relevant. You include things that seem important to you, that an investigator might interpret entirely differently. And you do all of this without an attorney who knows what the investigation is actually about, what evidence already exists, and what details you should and should not be putting on paper. An attorney can tell you those things before the pen moves. A blank piece of paper cannot. Now here is the trap inside the trap. The request to write down what happened almost never sounds like what it is. It does not arrive as, "Please produce a formal written statement for evidentiary use in our investigation." It arrives as, "Can you just write down what you saw? Or it would really help if you could put what happened in your own words." Or, "We just need a quick account from you so we have it on file." The framing is always casual. It is always quick. It is always framed as something that helps. Helps you, helps them, helps the situation resolve. The pen is extended in the same tone someone might hand you a menu or a birthday card. Nothing about the moment signals that you are about to produce a piece of evidence that may outlast the encounter by years. That casual framing is not accidental. A formal request for a written statement would put most people on alert. A casual invitation to write down what happened in your own words bypasses that alert entirely. And by the time you have written 2 paragraphs, the document exists. Whatever is in it is in the file. Here is what the bad way looks like. Officer at the scene of an incident asks the driver to write down what happened. Driver takes the paper, writes 3 paragraphs, describes the sequence of events as they remember them, including details about where they were coming from, who they were with, how fast they were going, and what they saw, hands it back. The driver believes they have just helped. They have given an honest account. They have cooperated. They have nothing to hide. 3 weeks later, their attorney is looking at a written statement that places the driver at a specific location, at a specific time, describes their speed in terms that contradict the defense they plan to mount, and includes a detail about a passenger that opens an entirely new line of inquiry. The statement is signed. It is in the driver's handwriting. There is no disputing it exists, or that it says what it says. The attorney's first question is, "Did you write this?" "Yes." "Did anyone tell you that you did not have to?" "No." "Did you ask for an attorney before you wrote it?" "No." 3 questions, 3 answers, and a case that is significantly harder than it needed to be. Here's what the good way looks like. Officer extends the paper and pen and says, "Can you write down what happened?" Before the hand moves, the driver says this calmly and clearly. "I would prefer not to provide a written statement without an attorney present. I am not refusing to cooperate. I am invoking my right to counsel before I put anything in writing." That is the complete response. Calm voice, no attitude, no lengthy explanation after it. The pen goes back, the paper goes back. Nothing goes in the file with the driver's handwriting on it. And the driver has put their invocation on the record, on the body cam, in the officer's notes, in the documented encounter, before a single word was committed to paper. Drop a comment right now and tell me, have you ever written a statement for a police officer without knowing you had the right to decline? Tell me yes or no. Tell me what the situation was. I want to know how many people have handed over a written account without ever being told they did not have to. If you are still here, hit the like button right now because the next section is where this gets specific. What happens after you say those words? How to handle every version of the follow-up, and why invoking actually moves the situation forward rather than stopping it. Here is what happens after you say you would prefer not to provide a written statement without an attorney present. Scenario 1. The officer accepts the invocation and moves on. This happens more often than most people expect. The officer notes your position, the encounter continues along its appropriate path, and the absence of a written statement is simply the absence of a written statement. You have not obstructed anything. You have not refused to be present. You have not refused to identify yourself where required. You have simply declined to produce a document that you had no legal obligation to produce. Scenario 2. The officer tells you that you do not need a lawyer for this. It is just a formality. You say the same thing again. I would prefer not to provide a written statement without an attorney present. Then silence. You do not engage with the characterization of it as a formality. A formality that goes in a police file is not a formality in the legal sense. It is evidence, and you have no obligation to produce it. Scenario 3. The officer tells you that your refusal to write a statement makes you look uncooperative or suspicious. You say this, "I understand your position, officer. I am not refusing to cooperate. I am choosing to exercise my right to counsel before providing any written documentation. That is a constitutional right, and I am invoking it." Then, silence again. In every scenario, what you never do is take the pen and write something you believe is harmless, just to resolve the tension in the moment. Because the tension in the moment ends in 5 minutes. The written statement lasts indefinitely. Let me tell you about Daniel. Daniel is 38 years old, lives in Georgia, and was involved in a minor traffic incident, a fender bender at an intersection where fault was disputed. An officer arrived, took both drivers' accounts verbally, and then asked Daniel if he would mind writing down what happened from his perspective, just so they had it for the report. Daniel had nothing to hide. He wrote 2 paragraphs. He described his speed, his position at the intersection, what he saw before impact, and what happened immediately after. He signed it and handed it back. 3 months later, he was in a civil proceeding related to the incident. The other party's attorney had the police report. The police report referenced Daniel's written statement. The attorney read the statement into the record. A phrase Daniel had included, "I thought I had time to clear the intersection," was used to argue that Daniel had acknowledged uncertainty about his own position. A detail Daniel had included about glancing at his mirror before the impact was used to suggest his attention was not fully forward. Daniel had written both of those things because they were true, and because he thought truthfulness would help him. His attorney told him what I am telling you now. Truthfulness is not the problem. Unguided written truthfulness without legal counsel, in a document that becomes part of the official record, is a problem. An attorney would have helped Daniel understand which truths were legally relevant, which ones were potentially damaging, and what language to use to describe events accurately without creating vulnerabilities he did not need to create. Daniel did not know he had the right to say no. Nobody told him. The pen was extended, and he took it because taking it seemed like the obvious thing to do. Daniel now knows the sentence. After this video, so do you. There are 2 legal foundations that make everything in this video exact. The first is the 5th Amendment to the United States Constitution. No person shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. This protection applies before arrest. It applies at the roadside. It applies the moment any request is made that would require you to produce information that could be used against you. A written account of events, your movements, your actions, your observations, your decisions, is exactly the category of self-produced information the Fifth Amendment exists to protect you from being compelled to provide. The second is the Sixth Amendment. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to have the assistance of counsel. The right to counsel is not limited to the moment of formal prosecution. Courts have recognized that the right to consult with an attorney applies at critical stages of the proceeding, and producing a written statement that will be used in any subsequent proceeding is precisely the kind of critical stage where counsel's guidance matters most. Invoking these two amendments before the pen moves is not obstruction. It is the exercise of the rights the Constitution already gave you. An officer cannot legally penalize you for that invocation. A prosecutor cannot use that invocation as evidence of guilt. The courts have protected the act of invoking from being used as an inference of wrongdoing. When you know these two amendments, the pen that gets extended in that moment stops being an invitation and becomes a question about whether you know what you are about to produce, and whether you are ready to produce it without the guidance that exists specifically for this purpose. Here is the complete recap of everything you now know. A written statement you produce at the request of a police officer is evidence. It is permanent, signed, and available for use in every proceeding that follows. No detail you write is too small to matter. No account you give is too honest to be used in ways you did not intend. You have no legal obligation to produce a written statement without an attorney present. The Fifth Amendment protects you from being compelled to produce self-incriminating documentation. The Sixth Amendment gives you the right to counsel before you do. The moment an officer extends a pen and paper and asks you to write down what happened, before your hand moves, you say, "I would prefer not to provide a written statement without an attorney present. I am not refusing to cooperate. I am invoking my right to counsel before I put anything in writing." Calm voice, no attitude. That sentence is the complete response. If the officer characterizes your refusal as uncooperative, you say, "I am not refusing to cooperate. I am exercising a constitutional right." Then silence. The pen goes back. The paper goes back. Nothing goes in the file with your handwriting on it until an attorney who knows what the investigation is actually about has helped you understand what you should and should not be committing to paper. Think about one person in your life right now. Someone honest, someone cooperative. Someone who would take that pen because writing down what happened seemed like the truthful thing to do, and they had nothing to hide. That person is the most vulnerable to this request, because their honesty is exactly what makes it dangerous. Share this video with them today, not later, right now before you close this tab. The sentence you just learned takes 5 seconds to say, and it keeps their honest account out of a file until someone is in their corner to help them give it safely. Next week, I am breaking down what happens when an officer says, "Just tell me your side," an invitation that sounds like fairness and is one of the most effective evidence-gathering techniques used at the roadside right now. The difference between that request and the written statement request is the pen. Everything else is the same trap. Subscribe so you catch it the day it drops. Hit the like button if this changed how you will handle the next time someone extends a pen and a blank piece of paper. Drop a comment right now telling me whether you knew before today that a written statement you produce voluntarily has the same evidentiary weight as a signed legal document. I read every single comment. I want to see how many people this is landing on for the first time. Know your rights. Use them. Stay safe.